Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to 1-2 Radio. We're changing the way you are listening to the world. You're listening to Rise with Monique Ruffin on 12radio.com, and I'm your host, Monique Ruffin. Thank you for joining me. I want to invite you, and I want to invite you to join me and the rest of the listeners in the chat room. And please bear in mind that our chat room is a closed group, and that means that whatever you post in the chat room will not show up on our timeline. However, be responsible for what you share in the chat room. To get to the chat room, go to 12radio.com, click on chat, and if this is your first time, my producer, Christy, will approve your request. The chat room is a great place to hang out during the show. It really is like a community there. And if you have any questions regarding today's topic, feel free to share them in the chat room. I welcome your comments, and I will do my best to get to them during the show. If I do not get to all of your questions during the show, I will be sure to respond to your questions after the show. You're listening to Rise with Monique Ruffin, and I'm your host, Monique Ruffin. Thank you for being here this beautiful Wednesday morning. All I can say is we are in the middle of the eclipse season. We have until the 21st before we get to our next eclipse in Leo that is happening. It's actually going to be happening in Scorpio. The new moon is going to be in Scorpio, I think, or something like that, but I'll figure that out. But here's the thing that's happening. Can everyone feel the energy? Like, I feel like I am in the most dreamy experience. Some of that might be because my son is traveling, so I'm literally not doing any sort of summer planning or any of that. Like, I'm actually resting before the onslaught of school and school supplies and school clothes and school planning and all of that. Like, I'm just giving myself several days for downtime. But it just feels like there's something surreal happening in the world right now. And of course, there's all the stuff around that happened in Virginia this weekend, but even that feels surreal to me. I'm just curious how people are feeling in this window of eclipse energy that is occurring, because I feel like things are really magical, and I'm not having a lot of experiences of trauma in my life, but I am watching people going through things. And so I'm holding space for a lot of people and a lot of details. And I love the opportunity to do that because I love being of service. But it just seems like there's an opportunity for an opening that is available to us if we are willing. So really quickly, I wanted to read something from The Gift by Hafiz, just a couple of little short poems. The first one is titled, The Scent of Light. Like a great starving beast, my body is quivering, fixed on the scent of light. That's it. I love that. Fixed on the scent of light. What does light smell like? Wow. What is the scent of light? And then there's another little one. No conflict. No conflict when the flute is playing, for then I see every movement emanates from God's holy dance. No conflict. Wow. Isn't that beautiful? Because everything emanates from God's holy dance. So if we know that everything emanates from God's holy dance, what's the point of any conflict, right? There's none. So I'm very excited today. We're just going to relax and just sort of flow today and be with my guest. And I'm really excited to be with Stephanie. And here's the amazing thing. Stephanie has written this incredible book, and she's written a book called The Art of Forgiveness. And so I'm just going to read a little bit about Reverend Stephanie Wild, and she's going to come in and we're going to talk about her book and how it can be of service to people and how it has served her. So, Reverend Stephanie Wild is a psychic medium, spiritualist minister, and internationally best-selling author. Her work centers on helping people connect to spirit so they can take control of their own happiness. She is well known for getting straight to the core of the taboo subject with kindness and grace. Working one-on-one with small groups or in front of large audiences, she uses her psychic gifts and ability to communicate with spirits, guides, and loved ones on the other side to get answers on burning questions of life. Her first and already beloved book, The Art of Forgiveness, provides an eloquent guide to recovering from personal trauma without letting anyone off the hook. It was written specifically for survivors of childhood abuse, but is useful for anyone who has found themselves holding a resentment, providing a method for freeing oneself while maintaining dignity and self-respect. You can find her at www.reverendwild.com. Welcome, Stephanie.
Hi, Monique. Thank you so much for having me on. What a great service you're providing for everyone.
Oh,
Radio's always been one of my favorite things.
Oh, I'm happy to hear that.
Yes, absolutely. It's so great for people who can't get out or who want to keep doing other things in their garden or at home. I actually used to read on the newspaper on a radio station that was specifically for those who were blind, so they could read the daily newspapers, so they could hear the daily newspapers. So yeah, and my sister actually was a radio host for many years and wrote a book on it, on the importance of radio. So it's always been something sort of dear to my heart. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for saying yes. I will say that I literally was on Instagram, and I have a relationship with you. You've done some astro work with me, which has been fun.
Yes.
And we're in a Mercury retrograde right now.
I know. And
yeah,
I recall you helping me through one of them last year, I think. Yeah.
Absolutely. So that is the work that Stephanie and I have done together. She has worked with me in my Mercury retrograde reset group, where we have worked together in learning how to be in the ebb of, the energy that is Mercury retrograde. It didn't have a eclipse attached to it the last time, which makes it even more significant to me, but that's how you and I have come to be familiar with one another. But right. Just working with you, I learned that you have all of these incredible gifts and talents. And so when in working with you, I have been a part of the experience of saying, yes, this is the work, like assisting you and just getting clear, really, on
that's
some
right.
level. And I have loved doing that. So when I saw on Instagram that you were posting about your book, I was like, yes!
It happened. That's right, because you were talking to me during that Mercury retrograde reset about digging deeper into family stuff, the family trauma and the family story. And I said to you, no, not again. I thought I was done.
Yes.
But this book was screaming to be born, and so it has been. So yeah, you've definitely been a key part of that.
Well, I am so excited, and I'm just really happy to have you here because, we can never get clear enough about what forgiveness is and why we need it and how it serves us. So I would love to just dive right in because your book it's titled The Art of Forgiveness.
Right.
So talk to me a little bit about where this book was born from, why you were called to this.
Yes. Childhood trauma and abuse really shaped me. And I spent 40 years recovering, growing from it. And I figured out how to find peace. And even more than peace, happiness with it, not just acceptance, but gratitude. And I wondered over the years if that was going to be possible at all. I knew that the great spiritual masters, Buddha, Jesus, Krishna, and many others, had reached this kind of peace and enlightenment, if you will, but I wasn't sure at all that it was possible for us regular folks. Mm-hmm. But I found it eventually, and I just I was called to, I couldn't resist writing it down for everyone else so they wouldn't have to take 40 years. Mm-hmm. I'm now at a place where I'm having fun with spiritual growth. You know, it's not like, oh God, please, another lesson, stop. It's really, oh great, another lesson. This is fun now. Right. I'd love to get people to that place sooner than I did. And so this book is a handbook almost. It's very short. It's intense, but it's short. It's not rambling. It is short, clear, and people can have it by their side and follow it with courage. All right, it's not going to be easy, but it works. It works. Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. So first of all, the thing that I heard you say that I totally resonate with is childhood trauma, and then the 40-year journey.
Yeah.
The 40-year journey is a real thing, and so let's talk about that from your perspective. Sure. Like tell me, like, talk about the trauma if you're open to that. Like what sure. the trauma was that you endured, that you were, that you suffered, if that's an okay word to use. And then what ensued afterwards for you to find yourself to where you are today?
Sure. So from the age of 6, that's the first I can remember. I suspect, may have been earlier, I was subject to sexual abuse from my father, complicity from my mother, and then living in a family system that denied the truth. So all of that then was emotional and psychologically abusive. And so from there, of course, I was what they call acting out the trauma in my personal relationships with friends, employers, lovers, all kinds of relationships, because that is what I was conditioned, is another way to think of it, to do. I self-medicated with drugs and alcohol. All kinds, nicotine, everything. Not so much food. Some people do food, some people self-harm, but I didn't do those. Couple of suicide attempts. My first one was at 6 or 7 years of age. Then as a teenager, which was more, please someone help me. And then I left. I ran away from the family system, which was a very good thing for me. And you can tell I have an accent. I came from Australia to the States. I've been here ever since. And so whilst here, I found help to put down the substances so that I could get clear enough to deal with everything else, right? I went into cognitive behavioral therapy, right? That's for my mind. I've always done exercise. I've danced, I've boxed. The physical part of it is very important, so that's mind, body. And then as I got clearer and clearer, spirit started to call to me. I was clear enough to start hearing spirit. Now, it always had been there. Looking back, I was certainly taken care of, as we all are. But now, without the fog of the alcohol, etc., and I was clear enough to really follow that call. Mm-hmm. And with a couple of divorces, I was thinking, why am I not successful in relationships like I am in work, like I am in becoming an immigrant, right? All these very difficult things that I'd been through. And it seemed to be that I couldn't trust my instincts. I couldn't trust myself. So I went to a class to enhance my intuition. Just that, so I could trust myself a little more. And one thing led to another, and the final pillar, I guess, of the three, mind, body, soul, was put into place. And here I am. So all of that, it was 40 years. I mean, that's a very short story, right? You know, there's all kinds of stuff in there that I've glossed over, but it's not a linear progress. It's not a linear process. So that's why I called the book The Art of Forgiveness.
Yeah.
It is messy. It's not a linear process. And there is an art to it. It is not intellectual. It's spiritual, and it ebbs and flows as we are able to accept the changes and the truth of what we've been through. Does that answer your question?
It does. It does.
Okay.
No, it's fine. I'm with it. So I think I want to, because what I feel is unique about your experience is that you are, and you just mentioned the intuition part. And as a child myself who endured a lot of trauma, that is a really key experience when we stop trusting ourselves because the adults aren't acknowledging what we're experiencing. So can we talk about that? Because I feel like that is key in my parenting. It is key to what I experienced as a child. And I think a lot of people listeners can resonate with what it means to be a child and to move through the world feeling, right? Like, because your intellect isn't in place yet. Right. And then to have that denied. So let's talk about that piece of it.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, that in fact, that's what I opened the book with, because, that is absolutely key. I'll use that word a lot. But, our reality is denied often, especially as women, when we have some kind of trauma. We're told that we can't trust ourselves. We're told that what happened didn't happen. We're told that what we're feeling is too much or wrong or not actually happening. And I went almost mad with that, because we internalize that conflict. On the one hand, we know absolutely deep down in our DNA that what we are going through is what we are going through, and yet those we trust the most are telling us the opposite. So what are we to do? Either we're insane, or those we trust the most are not to be trusted. Those we trust the most don't really love us. Those we trust the most, from my point of view, as a 6, 7, 8-year-old, were monsters. So this is maddening, and I think a lot of people, some people, don't really recover from this. This is the core of our being.
Yeah.
So if we're open enough to spirit, if we trust our intuition just enough to keep that sense of knowingness, that our own sense of truth alive, I think we can survive. And it's probably still there in all of us if we can just sit still long enough, endure the confusion and spiritual pain long enough to hear that again and to trust that again and to ignite that flame again. But yes, you've really hit on the core of it.
Right. So tell me, how did you do it? Because it's when you say it's spiritual, like how did you find the ability to begin to trust yourself, or how did you get that there was an instinctual aspect of you that had been repressed due to the trauma? Like, tell me your process. Like, you know, yeah.
Well, I had, growing up in the West and being educated in the West, I'd gone the intellectual route. I'd really done all I could there. I'd studied, I'd read, I'd memorized, I'd done 10 years of therapy, which I recommend. I mean, all that stuff is great. You know, I'd read social theory, feminism, you know, everything that could explain anything. And so I had that piece. And as I said, I've always had the physical outlet, but I still wasn't happy. So what else was missing?
Yes.
That was the only thing I could think of. So as I said, I went to my sort of first class. I thought, well, meditation, learning to trust my intuition, I guess. And I was terrified. You're absolutely right. I was terrified. My anxiety was through the roof. I thought, my goodness, what's going to become of me? But I took it one tiny step at a time. And I built up evidence. I have training as a lawyer, so I want evidence. So even in my spiritual growth, I would look for evidence. So if I trusted my instinct in one tiny way, and it proved to be a wise thing, it proved to be a positive thing, I'd note that down, and I'd try it again, and it would work again, and I continued that way. And that is how I came to spiritualism, because this spiritualist religion does not require faith of any kind.
Wow.
We absolutely go on what we have experienced, what we can prove.
That's pretty amazing. I really love that, because I was raised a Christian, and
me too, yeah.
Right. And we're told, like, you just believe, like, that's right. What you're told. Like, you don't ask any questions. You don't need any proof. You just believe.
Right.
So spiritualism is different than that, is what I hear you saying.
Yes, it's different. It's different than that.
And you get to ask for proof.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's in the principles that we get to ask for proof, and it's a very, very personal religion, very intimate. It's all based on your own experience. I mean, certainly you can choose to believe what others tell you they have come to know from spirit, but you're not required. You're not required. The highest truth, we believe, is contained in the Golden Rule. That is the core. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Okay.
And the other defining feature is that we believe that the personal identity of the person, the spirit, continues after death. Yeah, there's 9 principles, but those are the 2 key.
Okay.
And we believe that can be proven.
Okay. So here's the thing. We're going to go on a break. We're going to take a break for a few minutes, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about, I'm very interested in learning more about spiritualism and then how it helped you build your intuition so that you could really get clear to share this book that you've written. So we will be back. You're listening to Rise with Monique Ruffin. I'm here with Reverend Stephanie Wild, and we'll be back in about 5 minutes. Peace and blessings, everyone.
1-2 Radio. You don't just hear it, you feel it.
Hello, this is Monique Ruffin from Rise with Monique Ruffin over on 12radio.com. But today I'm here to talk to you about something different. I'm here to share with you Monique's Moon Manifestation Magic. I have been practicing for the last several years a technology that allows me to manifest my highest and best dreams with the phases of the moon. Yes, that's right. The moon can help you manifest your biggest and most desired dreams and life. And I'm going to teach this technology to you. But I'm also doing readings to help you understand how the moon power is activated in your personal chart. So if you're ready to manifest your dreams, if you're tired of being stuck behind frustration of not being able to create what you know you deeply desire, my Monique's Moon Manifestation Magic is just the thing that you need to help you pop through and manifest the life that you desire. Peace and blessings.
Christy Brower here, 1-2 Listen Advisor, 1-2 Radio host, and 1-2 Academy instructor. When you love what you do, it shows. I can honestly say that I am doing my dream job. My work as a psychic healer and teacher brings me joy beyond measure. To connect with me, visit ChristyBrower.com. There you can join my newsletter, see what classes I have available, download my free meditations, and see what I have going on at 1-2 Listen. My light is bright. Let me shine a little on you.
Hello, I'm Monique Ruffin, the host of Rise with Monique Ruffin, which airs Wednesday mornings at 7 a.m. on 12radio.com. I'm also an advisor at 1-2 Listen. I'm so excited to be a part of the 1-2 family because I love nothing more than helping and supporting people heal their lives, live their dreams, and become who they were born to be. Wouldn't it be great if all those things happened effortlessly? Maybe, but because they don't, we often need way showers. And I am that. If you have challenges in your relationships with partners, family, or friends, I can help you dissolve any obstacle you're facing. You are not alone, and I take great joy and pride in being able to serve and support you in any way you need. I use my coaching, intuitive guidance, and astrological wisdom to help you arrive at your desired destination. I'm also currently facilitating a workshop called Mercury Retrograde Reset, which I designed to help people harness and use the powerful energy of Mercury Retrograde in graceful ways. Isn't that amazing? Please join me by visiting MercuryRetrogradeReset.net, and we'll make sure this upcoming retrograde will be a walk in the park for you. I'm looking forward to connecting with you at 1-2 Listen, at 1-2 Radio, and through future workshops and events. Have a great day.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Lindsay. I'm an artist with a very creative and intuitive soul, and I've just recently survived quite an awfully big adventure where I discovered I've always had wings. I just needed to remember them. I've learned some pretty amazing things on this journey, which I share with my listeners every week right here on 1-2 Radio every Wednesday on my show, Angel with an Edge. I'm building an army of earth angels where we are learning to keep our wings up and our hearts open. I believe we are all roughly 80% good and 20% not so good, but everyone has their own magic ratio. I also believe in this day and age, we are all on the edge of something, and we all need an army of angels that have our back. Each week on Angel with an Edge, we have a new flight plan, but our destination is always the same, to learn how to love ourselves a little more than the day before and gently remind ourselves to love ourselves through everything and to never push ourselves through anything. You can learn more about my Army of Angels at angelwithanedge.com, where you can purchase a cute little angel lapel pin and other beautiful things created by me, as well as my version of oracle cards called Edgeisms, which are the philosophy of an angel with an edge. You'll also find free downloads on tools and tips you can use learning to love yourself. I hope you'll join me every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific Time on Angel with an Edge. There's no boarding pass required, just your wings and the empowerment they bring. Not sure you've got wings? I promise you that you do, and I'll help you find yours too with Wings Up.
Good morning. Thank you for tuning back in to Rise with Monique Ruffin. You are listening to Monique Ruffin with Stephanie Wild, or Reverend Stephanie Wild. And we are having a really beautiful conversation about her incredible book titled The Art of Forgiveness, and this journey of moving through childhood trauma and finding your way on the other side of it with a deeper understanding of yourself, the divine, and why we go through the things we go through on this human plane. Right?
That's right. I'm glad you,
Go
mentioned
ahead.
the question of why.
Yes.
Because I think that's one of the questions that those of us who've been through personal trauma, especially as a child, perhaps, one of the questions, the main question is why? Why did this happen to me? Why? And that was something that drove me to eventually to peace. As I was developing my intuition, and as I was growing spiritually and exploring spiritualism, I would talk to mediums, psychics, and mediums. And as you know, I was eventually to become one professionally. But one day, one of them had the answer, and she'd got the answer from my spirit guides. The answer was, for me, I had to go through this trauma to learn compassion for others. It was all part of my karma from past lives. And I chose to come to Earth to learn compassion in this very intense, difficult way. So all of a sudden, that really opened up, the floodgates to spiritual growth, and I felt a lot of relief. So, and from that moment, I have been open to guidance from spirit. I was able to suddenly trust it a lot more, be open to it a lot more, and live with it then from day to day.
That's really a powerful thing, like understanding that we've come here to learn these lessons. I think,
right.
It's really tough. You have children, if I'm correct.
I do.
Yes, right.
Too,
so,
yeah.
Right. So there's something about being a child who suffered trauma, right? And then being a mother. And remembering what it was like to be a child and the level of helplessness that it feels like, right? But there's
dependence,
yes, because you're so dependent upon the adults. But you also are so malleable as a child. And one of the things that I find myself doing now with my son, who is also very intuitive, is I affirm his knowing. But I find that he knows things about people that people might not want anyone to know.
Oh, fascinating. Oh, that's interesting.
Yes, and he will say it out loud in front of them.
God. Oh, God. And I did that too. Did you do that when you were a kid?
Yes.
I thought it was common sense. I thought everybody knew this stuff. I thought everybody knew the truth and went around spouting it.
No, it is not so. And so now,
it is not so.
That is right. So the other day I was with my son and he said something about a young woman. She's young, so she's like a 19-year-old. So she's still figuring herself out. Sure. My son is 10. He can see something in her that she is still wrestling with and says it out loud. And I look at her and I know what he's talking about. And then I look at him and think, that's not the thing for you to say out loud.
Right. Not in polite earthly company, right?
That's right. Exactly. So when we got alone, I said to him, so here's the thing, honey. you can see things that maybe other people can't see. And you know things that maybe other people don't know. And you might even know things that people aren't clear about themselves. And you can tell me, but you can't say it out loud in front of everybody else.
Right. It's right.
So how was, like, let's talk about that intuition as a child and, you know, how can we be better as adults now as we're raising children so that they speak out, right? So, you know, so that they're not keeping secrets, so that they are also responsible. What do you think about that?
Yeah. I think it's not as difficult as it might seem. I think I completely concur with your point of view on that. We're spiritual beings living on Earth. We're here to learn things. And, you know, one of the things that we have to teach our children is manners. And really that's just manners, right? You don't spout out something in company. It's important to ask for consent, right? It's important to ask for permission. Just as we wouldn't touch anyone without their permission, we're not going to reveal their spirituality, their problems, traumas, concerns, fears, without their permission. And we're not going to help someone without their permission. When I'm working with someone, I always ask, may I come to you with a message from Spirit? May I give you some advice from Spirit? Do you want to explore this right now? And it's not just that it's polite, but infinite intelligence, Spirit, can't help us unless we ask. So there's more to it than just protecting people's feelings. So I think I completely agree with your approach, and building up that trust between parent and child is the most important thing, so that we can really go deep with them.
Yeah.
And ensure that they feel safe, and find it joyful and satisfying to explore spiritually, and so they're not frightened, because there's so many silly notions about communicating with the dead and communicating with spiritual entities. So many silly notions that scare people. So providing that safe space for kids to say and feel and be anything, I think is important for them. It's important for the planet, right? Yeah.
So you talked earlier about learning that your trauma and the abuse that you suffered as a child was for the purpose of you learning to be compassionate. How is it that we can help people, our clients and friends and family? Because most of us experience things, and well, here's the thing: we all come here to learn, so that's what we know. So even if people have the most idyllic looking lives, even they have come here to learn.
Indeed.
So how do you find the purpose, the reason for why we have been through the experiences that we've been through, so that we can move out of the experience of being a victim of it? How do you get to the place where you go, oh, you know, I was abandoned by my mother or abused by my father because I needed to get this and get to peace? How does that happen?
Oh boy. Yeah. Well, I kept asking psychics until one of my spirit guides popped up and told me. But there's also some things that can give you hints. If you can't get a direct answer from your guides, either yourself or through a medium, notice what things move you to tears at the drop of a pin. Right? What commercials on TV make you cry? I have a friend that always cried at movies when the mother died in the movie and she couldn't be there to raise her kids. And she, her great test was going through cancer that almost killed her very quickly. And so that made perfect sense for her. So that's one thing. What songs and what silly things move you to tears or anger? And that's a kind of instant meditation, if you will, right? It's suddenly getting right to the core of you, so that you suddenly have this huge emotion. Meditation, of course. Everyone says to meditate, and there's a reason for that. It is absolutely essential to finding your purpose, to finding your meaning. Be quiet, let your thoughts go, let that chatter settle, and listen and ask, what do I do next? What's the most important thing for me to do today? And follow those instructions. I think those are two key things. One very earthly and easy, and one much more overtly and obviously spiritual.
That's really powerful, because I love that, what you just said. Pay attention to the things that touch you at the core. Like the commercials that make you, make you feel 6 years old again.
Yeah.
Or a movie where you just cannot tend to keep it together. I remember once I was with a girlfriend and we were watching Legends of the Fall. Do you remember that film with Brad Pitt?
Vaguely. Was it a vampire thing?
It was with Brad Pitt, and it was a big movie, but I remember just the experience between the two brothers and how they were competing for the love of the father. And I could not, I cried like I was going to die as soon as I walked out. And and now that you're saying that, I remember that it so touched me, because I always wanted to feel like I belonged with my dad. Like I wanted to feel his love at a deep level. And that was what was going on between the characters. And now looking back, I could see that there was a sense of worthiness that came from feeling like my parents loved me. And because I didn't have it, it made me, I felt a deep sense of unworthiness. So what I hear you saying is, if we're paying attention, we can find the triggers.
We can. Yeah, we can. Yeah. And then we need to, from that point, accept where we are, accept that we didn't have a father, or we were hurt, or we were betrayed, or whatever it is. And the next step is to admit that to ourselves that we're responsible for our own happiness, right? Now,
okay, wait a minute. Because we think that people are here to make us happy. We think so.
Right.
So
that's right.
So let's talk about that.
Right, exactly. So these are the steps. So I've boiled it down to 3 simple but not easy steps. Accept where we are, admit we're responsible for our own happiness, and then act in our own best interests. So we're feeling all these feelings: anger, joy, resentment. We're feeling stirrings of compassion. Whatever it is, accept those. Accept those where we are, and feel that, and let them flow. Accept that the past has happened. It's not going to change. Accept that these people did what they did. Now, they're responsible for their actions, but they're not responsible for our happiness.
Okay.
We must admit that we are responsible for our own happiness. And from here on out, we act accordingly. So is calling them up and screaming at them on the phone going to make us happy? Probably not. It might feel really good in the moment, but probably not in the long run, right? But is taking care of ourselves, is communicating with our spirit guides going to help us? Probably. So is eating well going to make us happy? Yes. So all of these things. So it's AAA: accept, admit, and act accordingly. That's the key. That's all you need to do.
Okay. So let me ask you this. So as a person who has lived through trauma yourself, and now you have children, and do you feel responsible for your children's happiness?
No, absolutely not. No, absolutely
Talk to me
not.
about that, because I'm not saying that I do feel responsible for my child's happiness, but I am aware of what it's like to be a child who lived through trauma. So how do you do your parenting when you've been through such trauma?
I accept what they say is their experience. I do not belittle it. Do not dismiss it, right? Everything they feel is valid. It is what it is. And I also know beyond all doubt that they have their own guardian angels, spirit guides, ancestors on the other side taking care of them. And I know beyond a doubt that they chose to come here for a reason, to learn spiritual lessons, and I need to get out of the way of that and just keep them alive, keep them safe, and keep them spiritually strong enough to handle what they've chosen to go through. Now, it's difficult for me to see them in pain and confusion, but my happiness is my responsibility. So I need to remove myself from making them responsible for my feelings, and go do my own work. Go do my own work in the other room and get right, so that then I can then be there for them as, this guide on earth. Right. I got to get out of their way. That's my job. Get out of their way, keep them safe. That's it. It again is these simple concepts, but so difficult to put into practice from moment to moment.
Absolutely, they are. I struggle with it constantly. So, well, no, I don't, but I struggle with it. So before we end, we're just going to have probably about 5 or 6 more minutes. Talk to me about how you are with your parents now. Like how has that been for you?
Right. Yeah. Great question. So my father died some years back, and the moment he died, I felt him come to me. I was sitting in an office. He was on the other side of the planet, dying in Australia. I was in New York City, and I felt a great relief and a great happiness. And I felt a little golden orb kind of come and visit me. And he saw that I was okay, and I said, "Hey, Dad, see ya, bye." And that was it. We're much better friends now that he's on the other side. He comes around fairly often, and I don't love, talking to him. I mean, just because he's in spirit doesn't mean he's suddenly Christ consciousness. He still has a long way to go. But I have had messages from him. He has told me, he has admitted he was not a good father. He was not who he thought he was, and he's sorry. So I did get my apology, and that meant everything in the world to me. And at this time, I can operate with the idea that he is my spiritual helper. He gave me this lesson. He chose to play this difficult role in my life, and that was an act of love. Now this takes a long time to get to. You cannot get to this point from point A. This is point Z here. But that's my relationship with my father now. My mother's still alive, and I really have very little contact. She's still in denial about it. That's as good as it gets for her. I would love to see more spiritual growth from her, and I have taken her to spirit circles, and I have told her that I communicate with my dad. But there are certain things I say, and there are certain things I don't say, and that's part of me being compassionate. That's part of my lesson. Mm-hmm. And we talk about kids, we talk about cleaning, we talk about fashion. Mm-hmm. And my kids know her as part of their heritage. So it's meeting her where she is. I am finally able to do that. I was very resentful of having to do that. Mm-hmm. You know, like, oh, really? I get to have the trauma and then now I have to do all the work? Yeah. Really? How is that fair? Mm-hmm. But yeah, I had to do it.
Well, how is it fair?
Well, I chose it. Okay. And I know that beyond a doubt. That's not just a metaphor. I literally, with my spirit guides, before I came into my body, chose it. Yes. Organized it. This is what I had to learn. And accepting that makes it fair. I don't know. Right. Fair, not fair. It's kind of meaningless in spirit. That really only just has a meaning on earth, earthly justice. And that's a whole different conversation. You know, these perpetrators, yes, they need to meet justice on earth. But you and I are talking about spirituality, and fair and not fair doesn't have a meaning. It just is. Right.
I mean, so much of this is also about the intuitive part, because when I hear you say that, you know, I chose it, like there is a knowing in your saying of that, right? It lives deep inside of you, and people have to find that for themselves, right? Like like what you have discovered in your 40 years of learning about why you come here and all that, it has developed in you a greater sense of your knowing and your connection to the divine and your purpose here. And people have to find that for themselves. And the amazing thing is that we live through these traumas and we have these very, very, very painful experiences because they send us into ourselves. And
scary.
And when they're sending us into ourselves, it's so we can find who we really are beyond the body, beyond the experience, beyond the stories, right? And
that's right.
So that is really beautiful. And I hear that you've done that. And so I really want to encourage all of our listeners to purchase Reverend Stephanie's book. Please tell us where we can find your book and where we can find you and what you're doing.
Sure. You can go to Amazon. It's available in Kindle format at the moment. It'll be available in print later, hopefully this year. You can go to Amazon and search Reverend Stephanie Wild. It should pop up. You can also go to my website, and I will send you a free copy in PDF. It won't be the fancy Kindle, but you can go to my website, www.reverendwild.com. And you can put in your email address there, and I'll send you a free copy. And you can see a couple of other things there. You can contact me through there. So that's very easy. It's easy to remember. I'm the Wild Reverend.
I love
Reverend
that.
Wild. So, that's where you can find me.
That's very beautiful. Thank you so much. And I really just want, the thing that I love about your work is that it connects, it gives meaning to the trauma, is what it does. It gives meaning to the trauma. And that is very, very, very important to understand, that the trauma that we experience has a meaning to it that is deeper than just suffering.
Yes.
Like yours equaled compassion. Mine has equaled a sense of worth. And everyone can find what their trauma means for them and how they can live it out in a way that is in service to themselves and in service to others. So I thank you very much, Reverend Stephanie Wild, for being here today. I hope that all of our listeners will go and get your book and reach out to you. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And Christy, thank you so much for your patience with me. I just want you all to know that Christy is so patient with me because I am not timely at all, and she just is loving, and I appreciate it. So thank you very much, Christy. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you, Stephanie, and we'll be together again next week. I hope that everyone makes it through this incredible eclipse Mercury retrograde season. Keep your seatbelts on and keep breathing. Peace and blessings. Bye-bye.